Hello everyone. In today's video, we will be dealing with the CA 2025 Professional Values, Attitudes and Acumens and what they could look like in practice. When we talk about the PVAAs, or the Professional Values, Attitudes and Acumens, what we're really talking about is the learning outcomes linked to these different competency areas. There are 7 different competency areas, and we're looking now at some of the detail in terms of the learning outcomes. This is really the heart of the training program and going to be one of the most important steps that you take in preparing yourself and your trainees for CA 2025. The resources that you have at your disposal are Guide 3, the CA 2025 Professional Values, Attitudes and Acumens, or PVAAs as we've mentioned, in practice. Template 1, the training plan, and in particular, the tab around the expected levels of proficiency that link to each of the learning outcomes for the PVAAs. And then template 2, the PVAA examples, which is really the template where you are going to populate the examples relevant for your training office. Guide 3 is there to give you some general guidance, and you then need to take that guidance and start developing your own examples. Similar to the generic training plan, but specifically related to the professional values, attitudes, and acumens. Remember that the other element of the training plan, the integrated exposure plan, is around the technical exposure that you will be giving to your trainees on the training program, whereas the PVAA examples really talk to how they could evidence proficiency in the learning outcomes that will be measured as part of the CA 2025 training program. So just to take a moment and consider how the guide was developed. So many of you will know that we had a CA 2025 training program working group that have been working on the CA 2025 training program since 2019. That working group at the beginning of 2021 split into 2 smaller groups. One focused on training through client engagements, and that could be audit practices or consultancies, advisory offices. And then we have other training officers that train through rotations, and that's often more our public sector officers or commerce and industry. Both sets of examples within Guide 3 have been presented for you to consider in your training environment. You'll notice that at times the smaller working groups came to a similar answer, and at other times they came to different answers. We want you to consider both sets of examples. Some may be relevant for your environment, even if it's not stipulated under your specific bucket, not specifically for client engagements or rotations. There's something that you might take from those examples that are meaningful for your environment. So we do encourage you to look at the guide as a whole, even though we're presenting it in 2 different ways. How to use Guide 3. So the guidance is set out in 3 columns and really ties to what I've just said. The first thing is, when you read the learning outcome raw for the first time, sometimes there's a question around, well, what does this actually mean? So we've included a column that is really looking a little more deeply at what the learning outcome could look like in practice, and just giving you a little bit of context around what that could mean for a trainee. And then there are 2 columns, one for client engagements and one for rotations, that describe a little more how the trainee could provide evidence to reflect proficiency in those different learning outcomes. So 3 sets of guidance, what the learning outcome could look like in practice, giving you a little bit more detail, and then how the trainees could actually evidence those different learning outcomes depending on your specific training environment. And really, I want you to step back, take the guidance as it is, they are just examples, and consider what is most meaningful and relevant for your training office. You might discard both sets of examples as something that doesn't work or doesn't fit with your training office environment, and that's absolutely fine. We just want to give you some guidance from teams that have worked in this for some time, so that you've got a basis to start with. Something else that might happen as you're working through the guide is that some of the learning outcomes might seem similar. You're going to start asking, well, why wasn't this combined into one element? So let's take an example. So X3B, you'll see the numbering within the guide. Display conflict resolution skills to minimize the impact of or resolve conflict. So that's one learning outcome. And then under X5D, also one of the relational acumen learning outcomes, manage conflict between individuals and across teams. So you can see the theme of conflict resolution coming through, but there are two different flavors here that need to be considered. You have to look at the overall competency that we are developing. So under the relational acumen, there are a number of different competencies that we want to look at. X3 considers people skills, and that's really talking about personal effectiveness, interaction skills, and intercession skills. And that's when we look at X3B, we're looking at conflict resolution from that perspective, through that lens. When we look at it from a teamwork perspective, we're really looking at cooperation, individual skills to achieve a common goal. So a trainee might have an example that fits with both of these, how they personally use their conflict resolution skills and how it created a desirable outcome for the team. So they might be able to cross both of these, but they might also have one that only speaks to one of these elements. So in looking at the examples for these different outcomes, please bear in mind what we're wanting to achieve overall in terms of the trainee's development. And that should provide you with a little bit more insight into how you position the examples under these different areas. So when you open template 2 and start developing your own professional values, attitudes, and acumens examples, your own PVAA examples, think carefully about the technical context in which you'll be developing proficiency with your trainees, and also consider the specific learning outcome that you're wanting to develop. We suggest that when you develop your own examples, you consider the ultimate level of proficiency. You'll remember that some of the learning outcomes are trained to a proficiency level 1, foundational, might be a proficiency level 2, intermediate, or proficiency level 3, advanced. So remember that you want to pitch your example at the level that you are expecting your trainees to exit the training contract. So for an entry-level CA. So please think about the proficiency level, and also think about when you expect the trainee to achieve the different proficiency levels. And that's why we suggested to you that you look at template 1 as in conjunction with template 2 when developing these examples, so that you can set out when you expect the trainee to achieve these different levels of proficiency and how you expect the trainee to develop over the course of the training program. I'm hoping that this video has given you the different pieces of the puzzle that you need to go away and start thinking about how the PVAAs will play out in your specific training environment. Remember that you can always jump into one of the Q&A sessions and ask some questions around this, and you're also welcome to take this up with one of the individual consultants in an individual consulting session. Thanks for your attention today, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.